Hey guys, it's me Rebecca. So this will be my January wrap up, and in January I was able to finish about 8 or 9 books, and in that thumbnail you will notice that the bottom book, I'm still reading that one, but I might as well just review this because I have 100 pages left, and I think my thoughts will stay the same. So yeah, let's get started. But first, you might have noticed I am missing a book. I did enter 2025, finishing up Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mears, which I think I reviewed partially in my December wrap-up. I decided not to include that one just because my thoughts are the same, and as well, I did enjoy seeing the relationship between Frank and Cleo. My word, why did I forget her name? And like seeing their relationship as well as the relationship of others around them, and as well how they were affected by the relationship between the two of them, and seeing Cleo deal with her mental health, seeing Frank dealing with his drinking problem, and really I guess finally finding themselves in the world and finding their place in the world, because at the end Cleo decides New York's not a place for her, and yeah, overall I enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. Now, the first book I was able to start and finish in 2025 was Starling House by Alexi Harrell. This is about this girl named Opal, who she is the sole caretaker of her brother, who she sees potential for. Opal, because of circumstances, had to drop out of high school, and she works at a shop supporting her and her brother, and the place they live, which is a motel in town, they only live in because their mother made a deal with the owner or some bed, and the owner also, they are staying out of there because of this bed. And Opal is trying to get her brother out of this town. She sees he has potential and she wants him to have a better life than she has, and she's saving money to send him to a nice school. And Opal is drawn to this house in a town called Starling House, where this famous author lived, and then there's rumors about her and about the house and why she left, and about she died. And it seems like when she died, someone came along and claimed that they were the inheritor of this house, and it's been that way and so forth. And there's been a lot of strange rumors about the caretaker of this house and the fact he comes and really show in town. And Opal, she gets a job as the caretaker of the house, not caretaker, but housekeeper, there we are, of this house. And she's there, and the house almost seems to come alive, and there's also other strange happenings going on, and she's also dealing with these people who want entrance to Starling House, and they are threatening Opal, threatening her brother. And Opal, what she really wants is to protect her brother and keep him safe and keep him, I guess, when it's nearby. She falsified some documents when her mother died, saying she was over 18 when she wasn't, and she doesn't want to lose him. So it's really about her trying to protect her brother and doing what she needs to do to survive in this town, because the town has essentially turned their backs on her. This is a small town in the south where there's a strong Christian belief in, because her and her brother don't attend the church or anything. The town people just have turned their backs on them, and we see how that seems like a common thing in this novel, because in the end, the reason this house is alive and because of the strange happenings going on is because the town turned their backs on someone when they were clearly in a state of need and help. So, overall, I did enjoy the atmosphere and how this house, it almost feels alive, because the caretaker will say something or do something in the house or act up. Seeing Opal caring enough for her brother, overall I did enjoy it and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book I read and finished in January was Heartless Hunter by Kirsten Cicerelli. I believe in the UK this is called The Crimson Moth. And this is about this witch named Woon, who she was responsible for having her grandmother executed for witchcraft. There was a time prior to that when witches were not feared, but I guess respected. Like, there were these witch queens on a throne and whatnot until a rebellion took place that outlawed witches and witchcraft and killed these witch queens. And since then, being a witch is outlawed, and if you are a witch or even suspected of being a witch or hell, even being loyal to a witch, you can be executed, you're arrested and whatnot. And Woon's grandmother, in order to protect Woon, told Woon to tell the royal guards that the grandmother was a witch, and that's what Woon did. And her grandmother was executed. And some months later, Woon came into her powers, and since then she's been this figure called the Crimson Moth, who's been going around saving witches from being executed. And we follow her, and we see how Woon, she puts up this air like as a naive, like, self-centered person in society, like she comes from money and whatnot. And we see how she gets close to her friend Alex's older brother Gideon in order to get information from him. Gideon is part of the, I believe it is actually called the Blood Guard, I want to say. I think it's so long, but he is the one arresting these witches, having them executed. He's also the one looking for this Crimson Moth and trying to have her arrested. And with Gideon, he has a history with witches and with one of the witch queens, and that's affected him and where he's done things. And we see how the two of them court one another, each for their own motivation, and along the way they do fall in love. And I very much enjoy this. I like seeing Gideon's past and really learning more about him, and really coming to understand why he does what he does, and seeing how Woon does what she does. And I think what I liked the most is seeing how these two people, they come from different sides of the chessboard. And she's a witch, he's a witch hunter, but also they do come from different sides of society. Like, one is someone who comes from money, who's quite wealthy, has this grand manor, like grand house, grand everything. And Gideon, he was impoverished. He was living in he and his family lived in the poor side of town. Like, they weren't that well off. They couldn't really afford to send Alex, Gideon's brother, and Woon's best friend off to school, but eventually they did. I could see them come from different sides of society and understand one another, because they just didn't really understand one another. Like, there was a lot of misunderstandings initially, so yeah. And I am very much intrigued to see what book 2 has to hold with what happened in book 1, but yeah, overall I very much enjoyed that one, and I did give it a 5 star. Now, the next book I read and finished in January was The Love Letter by Lucinda Wiley. This is about an actor who passed away, and he left behind this letter, and it's also about this journalist she's assigned to cover his funeral, and she stumbles on the letters, and it's really as she's peeling back the veils of lies that has shrouded the secret, she realizes that there are other forces attempting to prevent her from discovering the truth, and they'll stop at nothing to reach the letter before she does. And with this one, I was very much intrigued about the plot. I like seeing it unravel and unfold. My one critique is I didn't really care much for these characters and the relationships, just because there were relationships forming, but I just didn't really feel connected to them. And I don't know, it's like at the beginning of this novel, Joanna, she's heartbroken over the fact her boyfriend of 6 years broke up with her, and I don't know, it's like she's so heartbroken about it. And then it's like this felt suddenly she moved on quite quickly, like that could be due to her realizing how grateful he was in that relationship and other circumstances, but still, like, it's also this and another relationship in here I just didn't really feel attached to. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this, it's just a mystery, but overall, I just had fun with this and I did give it a 4. The next book I read and finished in January was Hello Transcriber by Hannah Morrissey. And this is about this police transcriber named Hazel Greenlee, who listens as a detective divulging Black Harbor Sea towns thieving in Wisconsin gruesome secrets. As an inspiring novelist, she believes that writing the book could be her only ticket out of this frozen housekeeper. But her life isn't exactly brimming with inspiration until her neighbor confesses to hiding the corpse of an overdose victim. With an insider look at the investigation, Hazel becomes spellbound by the lead detective, Nikolai Cole, and the chilling narrative he shares with her. Through his reporting, she learns that the suspicious death is linked to Candyman, a drug dealer notorious for selling illegal substances to children. And when Cole invites her on a covert operation to help take the dealer down, the promise of her story calls to her. As the investigation unfolds, Hazel will discover how far she will go for her story, even if it means destroying her marriage, her career, and any chance she has of getting out of Black Harbor alive. Because if she's learned one relentless truth about this place, it's the fact that everybody lies. Now, with this one, it felt more like we were more focused on Hazel's personal life, like her relationship with her family, and really like this affair she's having with Nikolai. In that case, it's almost like a background thing. Like we see that Hazel, she is in an unhappy relationship with her husband. She doesn't love him, and maybe she did at one point, but it's her figuring it out and using the case as inspiration for her novel, and seeing her going back and forth if she's actually trapped in Black Harbor, and I guess seeing her eventually be able to get out of that town and away from everything. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy the atmosphere of this, how it felt, like how the town felt very bleak. Like it gave off the feeling of a place where people feel like they can't leave. But yeah, overall, I did like this and I did give it 4 stars. Now, the next book I was able to finish in January was Hex by Jeannie Fagan. And this is about the last night of her life in a prison cell several floors below Edinburgh's High Street. Convicted witch Gillis Duncan receives a mysterious visitor, Iris, who says she comes from a future where women are still persecuted for who they are and what they believe. As the hours pass and dawn approaches, Gillis recounts the circumstances of her arrest, brutal torture, confession, and trial, while Iris offers support, solace, and the tantalizing prospect of escape. And I did very much enjoy this. Enjoy, I would not say it's the right word, but we see how with Gillis and Iris, like, things for women in both of their times haven't really changed. Like, rumors can affect a woman's reputation and really make people see women in a certain way, And it's also like how, despite centuries passing, things women are allowed to do has changed. Women are still villainized, like how they are still blamed for the crimes of men and are expected to be meek and invisible. How men in Gillis' time thought they were soldiers of God taking down the soldiers of the devil, and how women cannot be trusted because of Eve. in an apple and committed no ultimate sin. I mean, it is less severe in Iris's time, but it's still like men think they have so much power and women should be invisible. And we also see like how men almost use women as a weapon, I guess, to gain what they want, and how it affects women, and when we see the connection between these two women. And overall, I did very much enjoy this novella, and I did give it 5 stars. The next book I finished in January was The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. This is about this girl named Adrienne, who she is a freelance writer, and she is in debt because her mother fell ill, and there's been a lot of hospital bills they had to pay and whatnot. And Adrienne doesn't have an anchor, I guess. She was living on her friend's couch when suddenly she learns she's the inheritor of this grand house, and she's in a desperate need for a place to stay. And she sees it as a lifeline until darkness falls. Strange messages are etched into the walls, furniture moves when she leaves the room, and a grave hidden in the depths of the forest hints at a terrible, unforgivable secret. Something twisted lives in her house. Its hungry eyes ever watchful, chasing the threads of decades-old mystery. It isn't long before she realizes she's become prey to something deeply unnatural and intensely resentful. I'm gonna pause for a second and say I'm so sorry for lighting's changing. I'm only using window and daylight, and I don't know, the sun's coming in and out, and it's quite cloudy today, but yeah, I'm sorry for that, but yeah. And overall, I did find this book very atmospheric. I think that's what I enjoyed the most about it, is that seeing this house or something playing games with Adrienne, almost and haunting her. Like, the house definitely has, I guess, different figure or different atmosphere to it during the day, where it's like more, I guess, peaceful and safe feeling. But during the night, something strange and dark is coming out of it. And yeah, and I also enjoyed seeing like Adrienne trying to investigate like the previous owner of this house, a woman named Edith, and how there are a lot of contrasting views in her eyes, because to Adrienne was like this nice old lady who gave her a house, even made a room for her, while the townspeople found Edith to be quite standoffish, and we see why Edith had to put on that air of being standoffish in order to protect the people in this town. So yeah, overall, I had fun with this, and I did give it. Now, the next book I finished in January was The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. And this is about a boy who's lived his whole life trapped within a book choke chamber older than empires and larger than cities, and a girl who spent hers in a tiny settlement out on the desert where nightmares stalk and no one goes. The world has never even noticed them. That's about to change. Their stories spiral around each other across worlds and time. This is a tale of truth and lies and hearts and a blurring of one into another. A journey on which knowledge codes certainty, and on which through the pen might be mightier than the sword, blood will be spilled and cities burned. And we follow these two individuals. The girl, her settlement is attacked, and she is brought into the city where she's put into like the library, and we see kind of the struggles she has, like trying to become a part of the system, a part of the library. Like, she comes from a place where she wasn't taught to read and write, and we see how she eventually grows and becomes herself. And she's a girl who has a lot of questions, and I think I did enjoy that. But she's also very much curious about the library, and she tries to explore it, like going to parts she's not exactly allowed to go to. But also as well, like how people are trying to get her out of the library because of the king saying that the people of the dust are horrible people, like they are not, trying to make them like they're not humans to the people in the city. And the city is walled off from the rest of the world. And like, the king is saying that they're blamed for these other creatures, the sabers and whatnot. So it's like, I guess that fear the king's trying to install on the people, and the fact she counteracts his argument. And with the boy, he is trying to find a way out of this library. Like, he is trapped, he doesn't know how to, and as well, he found this book, and he is trying to find this girl, and eventually these two people find each other, and yeah. And I have to say, there were times towards the end of it where there was other stuff going on in my life where I just couldn't pay attention to it. So that did affect my reading experience, but overall, I did like this, and I dig it. Now, that is all the books I was able to finish in January, but the one book I'm going to review now that I've not yet finished, I do have, I think, about 100 pages. Yeah, about 100 pages left of it. But I don't think like my opinions will change on it by the time I review this in February. Plus, I will probably forget about most of it because my memory is just not the best at times. And that would be The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, which I'm not sure it's like a prequel or a sequel to The Shadow of the Wind. I know it's a part of that series, but I'm not entirely sure. But we follow this young man named David Martin, he's an inspiring novelist, and we see how he goes from being very impoverished to starting his career as writing these short stories in a newspaper that he was eventually fired from because of his co-workers kind of being hostile towards him, to basically signing his soul away and writing under a pseudonym and writing books that he didn't really want to write, and selling his soul in a sense like of greed, of getting his work out there even if he cannot put his name to it, to eventually selling his soul to someone who might actually be the devil, and writing a book that the guy wants him to write, and really seeing like his personal relationships and kind of how everything's affecting him and his own health. And we also see with David Martin how he is curious about the previous owner of the house he rents and what happened to him and his story, because it seems like the guy's story is almost reflecting David's own, because like the guy who rented his house, David was very much curious about the house. He envisioned himself living in it, and then when he was living in it, he felt like he had like some sort of tumor growing in his head that was eventually moved in. He also worked for the same French publisher, the guy that David's working for, the guy's working for. And so far, I'm very much intrigued to see who this publisher really is and what his goal is, and I guess the outcome of David's story from here. But so far, I have to say, I am loving this writing style. I read The Shadow of the Wind back in 2022, so it's been a few years, but I'm very much enjoying this one and the writing. All of the, I guess, lines about being a writer and whatnot, like how you put yourself into every book you write and how it's almost like a piece of you. So yeah, overall, I'm very much enjoying it, and I'm giving it 4 stars. Now, that is everything I was able to read in January, and besides finishing up The Angel's Game, which, one more thing about it, I really need to show you this, because this is the dust jacket, but if I was to remove the dust jacket, let's see how this is the naked book. Like, tell me, like, can books be this beautiful, please, all the damn time? Like, this is just, I think in normal edition I found that a library book sale, but yeah. Where's my train of thought? I'm sorry for that one. But besides these books, the 2 books I plan to read in February so far, and again, everything else I plan to read in February will be in my February wrap-up. But after I finish dangerous game I do plan to jump into, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. And this is about this place called Area X that's been cut off from the rest of the world for decades. Nature has reclaimed the last vestige of human civilization. The first expedition returned with reports of a pristine and dawnning landscape. The second expedition ended in mass suicide, and the third in a hell of gunfire as its members turned on one another. The member of the 11th expedition returned as shadows of their former selves, and within weeks all had died of cancer. In Annihilation, we joined the 12th expedition. The group is made up of 4 women: an anthropologist, a surveyor, a psychologist, and the de facto leader in our narrative, a biologist. Their mission is to map the terrain, record all observations of their surroundings and of one another, and above all avoid being contaminated by Area X itself. They arrive expecting the unexpected, and Area X delivers. But it's the surprises they came across the border with them and the secrets the expedition members are keeping from one another that change everything. So yeah, I'm very much excited to read that. And after that, I plan to go into Normal People by Sally Rooney. And this is about Connor and Marion, who grew up in the same small town, but the similarities in there. At school, Connor is popular and well-liked, while Marlene is a loner. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins, and I'm just very much intrigued to read that. And that's everything. No, that is everything I was able to read in January, and I plan to read in February so far. And again, everything else I read in February will be in my February wrap-up. But yeah, that's it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below telling me what you've been reading recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, then all those links are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time I post a video.